It's 4:30 in the morning here. I can't sleep. I'm awake. And, my rule is when real men can't sleep, real men do the news. And this is an interesting bit of news and a welcome bit of news. Let me check my sound first. And while I do this, if you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. And if you don't necessarily want to do it through Patreon, through PayPal or PO Box or whatever. And it's always appreciated, the help for the channel. So thank you in advance. And even if you're just liking and sharing it, still, gold star. I came across a bit of news in this. The majority of Republicans are on board for Medicare for all. Majority of Republicans support Medicare for all poll funds. It's not a huge amount, but it's more than half. I'll take it. I couldn't sleep. A gentleman who was selling sunglasses approached my wife and I at the Lisbon, I think it's called Comencia or something like that, and offered us pot. And so this kind of not necessarily great, I went out and smoked a joint while I waited and thought about how I was going to make this argument. And so let me try to make this argument this way, because I've talked about this before, but I want to make a specific argument. We in our society, we are extremely accustomed to advancements in technology. So like the light that I'm using, somebody had to create the bulb, somebody had to create the technology in order to make the stand work, somebody had to make the technology for the computer, somebody made the technology for the video system, for the electricity itself, the conduits for those electricities, all of these little incremental technologies that people toiled on that we would never know their names, that have been added and created into technology that we use, we don't even think of. The lights in our room make us better. The elevators make us better. The cars make us better. The capacity to send things into space make us better. In fact, the things that we sent into space and just the very act of the technology in order to create rocket systems allowed us to make technologies also here on Earth. All of those things make us better. They allowed us to do more work, allowed us further advancements in regards to our knowledge of the universe, even our knowledge of just basic things that allowed us to do more things. Me doing this kind of art is only possible because of all sorts of unnamed people throughout time and throughout history that is given their work, their labor, their intellect. And those things were put into technological devices, and gadgets, and doodads. And this is the world that we have. We're extraordinarily comfortable with that. That comes across as just a natural thing. It feels natural that technology will propagate itself forward and that technology will get more newfangled and more awesome. But I think we really need to consider that there are all sorts of unnamed people that added their labor and their intellect and their thoughts and their skills into developing the world that we have around us. We are better for those things. Better for those things. Now, I say that because even though we're okay with those things from the standpoint of physical systems, and maybe it's because it's solid, it's something I can hold in my hand and manipulate and see and touch. When it gets to social systems, for whatever reason, we have a different perspective of things. Electricity makes us better. By the same token, from a social scenario, as we evolve to a certain point in our society where there are certain things that are possible. And in those things that are possible, we need to, from a social standpoint, also look at social systems as an evolutionary process. That there are things in social systems that we accrue around, that we create and manage as agreements that we make. Social systems that make us better. And in making those social systems, the people who come after us will stand on our shoulders of those social systems and look forward for things in order to push our society forward. Medicare, Social Security, got rid of poverty. I think like 30-40% of poverty. Amazing social system. We stand on the shoulders of Medicare and Social Security. Those things are our society coming together and making decisions to say that we are going to ensure that at the very least there is a basic level of subsistence for the elderly in our society, and we are not going to let them die on the streets. That is better. That makes us better human beings. That makes us better people. That is an evolutionary in our society. I want to make the argument that so is Medicare for all. Medicare for all is an evolution in our society. When Barack Obama, yes, Obama on this, gets a certain degree of credit, no, not necessarily pushing it forward to the degree that he should have pushed it forward, but breaking the public consciousness of, yes, you can, or yes, we can do this. Tepid, incrementalism. But that tepid incrementalism at the very least created a system where people thought to themselves, this is possible. Trump care, worse. But because of how bad Trump care is, to some degree, the public itself said, well, Obamacare is half-assed. Why don't we just go all the way? And you end up with a situation where even Republicans say, God, man, maybe capitalism doesn't necessarily need to affect each and every aspect of our society. This utopian idea that markets need to be everywhere. Understand the scenario that you have. This idea that if a person is in the desert needing water, that you charge that person 1,000% because that person is going to die without that water. I don't understand how medical systems are any different. You have a broken bone, pay me. Your mother has cancer, pay me. Your father has some kind of degenerative disease that he needs assistance, pay me. Medications, where people raising it some ridiculous amount. They're good capitalists because they know they have you over a barrel. And in having you over a barrel, they can rape you blind. Because what are you going to do? Not attach the finger, not fix the broken bone, not get the cancer treated, not get that particular treatment or that treatment for that kid, or what are you going to do? Not pay for your kid who's sick. It is an evolution of a society to create a social system that says, we don't want that. We don't want a situation, this exploitive relationship, expressly in this particular instance. We all, to some degree, have frailties. We are the 99%. We are not most wealthy. The majority of us, a $500 bill would essentially not be able to be paid, meaning if there's a $500 car note, we will not be able to pay that note. That's the majority of us. I'm making a point that as a collective, we as a society can come together and say, just like we did with Medicare, just like we did with Social Security, we can come together and say we as a collective are not going to allow markets to take advantage and exploit us. We can do this better. We can do this cheaper. We pay twice as much for healthcare as anywhere else in the world. We pay twice as much for healthcare as anywhere else in the world. We do not get better outcomes. Just to show you one chart, and yes, people are in situations where they don't get healthcare because they don't necessarily want to bill. We have thousands of people that die each year. Inadequacy of healthcare. One chart, because I don't want to belabor this point. Yes, the United States spends twice as much for worse results. Look at this. This is mortality rates. The United States spends twice as much, but look at this. We die like 10 years or more sooner than our European counterparts. Now, people can make arguments that maybe there are other things attributable to that. Fair enough. But the thing that deals with our mortality tends to be an issue of healthcare. And the idea that we're spending twice as much and dying sooner. This chart doesn't even get into infant mortality rates. The amount we pay for drugs. We are getting raped in this country. Certainly we can do better. We can cover all of us, and we can do it cheaper. That is an evolution of a society. That is a society that evolves and realizes that markets, even if you're a capitalist, don't necessarily need to infect each and every system. And it is a utopian idea to believe that it should. In this country, we were born and raised, and there's a cultural phenomena in which case where it makes it sometimes difficult to extract yourself from the way that we go about our affairs in regards to the way we think. But extract yourself for this moment and look at this as a person sitting on the moon and ask yourself, why are we paying twice as much for less results? And if we can cover everybody, because there's still millions of people that are not being covered for healthcare, people who are not being covered for healthcare. Can we cover them? Yes. You're going to get the Republican Party trying to make arguments as to why we should keep the monstrosity that we have currently. I suggest that the evolution of the society is to resist that, to extract yourself from the scenario to which we have, and to say that we can organize social systems, organize them in a way for the betterment of all of us. It is an evolution of a society to acknowledge that. Medicare for all is an evolutionary process of this country. The Republican Party is going to be against it. Elements of the Democratic Party is going to be against it. Fortunately, half of the Republican Party has come to Jesus. The Democratic Party was already there. If nothing else, we as a society should be on board for this change. In the same way that we have physical systems, electricity, roads, spaceships, buildings, elevators, social systems also evolve. Healthcare in the way that we've gone about it, compared to other nations, is horrendous. Ask the Brits with their national healthcare system. They would never give that national healthcare system up. Ask the French, ask the Canadians. None of them would ever give those systems up, because all of them in that society, or let's say the majority of them in that society, look at those things with pride. And they look at us with, what the fuck are they doing? It's time we join the rest of the world and evolve. Social systems. Yes. It may be intellectual, it may be intangible, but those are still systems nonetheless. We can cover each and every person in this country, and we can do it for less than what we're paying. We pay twice as much for worse results. It's time to grow up. I hope this argument worked. Let's see. We're still blowing trillions on the F-35 joint strike fighter. Unfortunately, many in Congress support it. Not to rag on Bernie, but he voted for more funding for the F-35 because some of it was made in Vermont. It's a